This is one of the things I'm kind of in charge of at the school. So I've got my assessment recording report in hand today. Just to start off with, what Julian's been talking about most of the time so far has been assessment, day-to-day assessment, carried out in the classroom, moving a child on actually from one point to the next point during that 40 minutes, hour and 15 minutes of a lesson, whatever it might be. What I'm now going to be talking about is the summative assessment. So in some way, the teacher will aggregate all the assessments that have happened for that child over the last term or so and come up with an attainment grade, what we call an attainment grade. If you're used to primary schools, you might be thinking of what level they were at or something like that, although that's a bit of a naughty word at the moment, and first point, bullet point kind of emphasises that. But where are they at? You know, what grade are they on? Where are they? That sort of summative assessment, and that's really what I'm going to be talking about from now on. I'm going to be talking about the assessments we give them, so what we're going to call forecast grades here, and they will be on the 9-to-1 new GCSE scale. I'll also explain about that. If they're in anything from year 7 up to year 11, that's when we do the GCSEs. Old money, first year to 5th year. I'm still old enough to recognise that a bit better sometimes. And then you've got sixth form, and there are some parents here that have children in the sixth form, young men in the sixth form, and they're obviously A star to grade E. Hopefully there won't be any use, but A star to E is what they will be getting. So I will refer to both ideas, but realistically it's just the same. It's some sort of numerical or graded scale that we think they're at or heading towards. So I'm going to talk about grades. I'm going to talk about target grades as well. Now, target grades. This is where we're going to say where a child is at now and give them a number or whatever. And anyone who's had a child do Key Stage 2 SATs, I'm assuming that's everybody in the room right now, because you've either just done them or you did them a few years ago, they'll get a grade or a level based on that. What does that mean, and where do we move forward from that? How useful is that? And I'll explain a little bit about how we use that at the school. As far as A-level is concerned, I will keep mentioning it just as an added on a little bit, but basically we use a new starting point would be their GCSE average point score instead of their Key Stage 2 level, and then they go for the A-level grades from there rather than the GCSE grades. So just to finish off, what I'll be doing is just looking at our reports. So that's what to expect over the next dozen or so slides. Starting with this one then. So this is where we're starting from in terms of, there's been a lot of change in education around assessment. I mean, if we just go down the list, you've got the removal of Key Stage 3 levels. Anyone who's at this school at the moment, they obviously did Key Stage 2 SATs and got a level at the end of it. So level 4, 5, 6, whatever it might be. For each of them, maths, English, and if you're old enough, maybe you did science as well. That's actually changing to a numerical score from now on. So we will get, for our New Year 7 in September, a graded score from 80 to 130 instead. But it's the same sort of thing in terms of they've done a test or tests and they've come out with it where they're at. The adoption of grades 9-to-1 at GCSE. So unless your child's in year 11 currently, or moving into year 11, then they will be doing GCSE grades at the end of the day that will come up with a grade 9 down to a grade 1. So that's instead of a grade A star down to G or whatever it might be. So 9 is best. I've written it that way around because a lot of people are used to saying A star to C or A star to G, A star being the best. So 9-to-1 with 9 being the best. And I've got a slide that will show that. Reformed A-levels, there's a lot of changes to A-levels. We're not going to go into those, but it's on the agenda at the moment. Obviously, teacher workload. We're all working our socks off, honestly. I might have been down at Stanley watching tennis this afternoon, but that was senior games. Yeah, we're flippant about it, but there is, you know, you do get your value for money out of teachers these days, honestly. We do work quite hard. Adoption of CISRA, we've got a new kind of web-based system that looks at all our data and, you know, is very, very useful to us, and it helps look at a lot of these progress scores, these target scores, and where a child should be and where they're at and whether they're making appropriate progress. And that does a lot of that work for us and is really quite useful. So another thing that's on the horizon. The Key Stage 2 we've already mentioned, and we did actually consult our parents And there's two main things that came out of it. They didn't mind only getting attainment grades 3 times a year. Last year we gave them out 6 times a year, and it seemed to be quite a lot. I'm sure anyone who's got a child who's currently in the school, you were getting a lot of information, and perhaps every half term was a bit too frequent. And nearly everybody, I mean, there were perhaps, 96 responses from parents. I think there were single figures that actually would have rather had a lot of data. Everybody was quite happy with our proposal to move to just 3, so that's 1 a term. And, we were quite happy to take that on board. We also wanted to remove comments, and that was really a workload issue, and actually it was debated amongst the staff as well, because there's quite a lot of staff, me amongst them, that actually do quite like writing something about the child anyway. But it came back very, very strongly from the parents that you particularly wanted comments written down, so we did take notice of that, and we are keeping comments all, quite often throughout the reporting cycle. Right, so that's what I'm going to tell you about. I'll be a bit quick on each other slide, honestly. I'm going to spend half an hour on each one. So this one, targets. Now, in terms of targets, this is where a child is going to be at the end of their course. Now, Key Stage 3 really has pretty much died to death with levels disappearing. Now, I'm saying that, in terms of assessment type terms, I'm saying that. We still have a Key Stage 3. We have a Key Stage 3 where we do lots of subjects and we have a broad curriculum, and then we choose options, and we do options in year 10 and 11. So although I'm saying about removal of Key Stage 3, removal of Key Stage 3 in terms of assessment, it's gone. It went a while ago in terms of published English, Maths and Science tests that we used to do. So really we've got, in terms of the attainment grade data that comes in, we've got the Key Stage 2 levels, which are national tests, and then we've got the GCSE, which are the next lot of national tests. And that's really what we're looking at now in terms of these targets. So along the bottom, this would apply for anyone who's currently at this school. So the child will have taken Key Stage 2 SATs and got 3C, 3B, 3A, 4C, etc., etc. A sub-levelled grade, but levelled grade. As I say, anyone who's in Year 6 currently coming in Year 7, you'll get a numerical score as well instead between 80 and 130. But to be honest, all that they'll do is superimpose 80 at that end, 130 at that end, and come up with a graph very similar to this in terms of what you would expect a child to end up getting 5 years later. Now, expect. It is a very rough and ready system. It's a best guess. I'll come on to a health warning on the next slide, but it is proven that it kind of works. And for about 50% of the students, you will actually get the right grade. That doesn't mean a quarter of the students will do better and a quarter of the students will do worse. And that's really where Julian's talk at the beginning about growth mindsets, about doing all these things that can move children on in a better way than others, comes in. I mean, that's the whole point of it. If it was a done deal, there'd be no point having teachers. They'd just, what are we there to do? We're there to try and move those students on as best we can. So, although law of averages says that's what grade they'll get, there's a lot more to it than that. And yes, that is what grade roughly they'll get. I mean, 50% of them will probably end up getting that grade in that particular subject. But they don't all get, when they get their, please just come in, find a seat. When they get their grades, GCSE certificate isn't like 9 grade A's or 9 grade C's or 9 A stars. It's what it is. It's a mixture and depends on how well they progress in each of the subjects. And there's so much comes into how the child might be moving on. Motivation, growth mindsets is a big thing. Assessment for learning, etc. is another thing. So that's just what I'm saying about the idea. Yeah, it's a blunt tool. 50% of students will get roughly that grade. A quarter of the students will do better, a quarter of the students might fall below expectations, etc. And, that's where effort grades, attitude to learning that Mr. Sim's going to talk about later, that's where Julian's growth mindsets, AFL techniques come in. To just get them to move to the top end of that range is what we're really after there. So there's just that health warning. And it is important to realise that, especially if you're going to get a grade in Year 7 that's going to tell you what a child is going to get in Year 11, please take it with a pinch of salt. I mean, it is a best guess. It is. You want to know whether a child is likely to move on and be moving in the right direction. but, you know, just don't save it and said, in year 7 you said he was going to get, please, because it won't work like that. As far as A-level's concerned, it's really exactly the same idea. So instead of that spreadsheet here where you've got Key Stage 2 level across the bottom and GCSE grade up the side, all you'd have is GCSE average point score along the bottom, A-level grade up the side, and a similar looking graph. It's a lot more sophisticated than that. These are subject-specific tracking lines that you do, and yes, you do the simple job of interpolating, so you draw your vertical line, perpendicular line going across, and see what grade it kind of corresponds to. But it is subject-specific, so every single subject will have its own version of this graph. And the correlations for some of them are very, very strong. Maths correlation is very, very strong. DT correlation, for instance, is not very strong. Hardly surprising, I think, if you actually think about what we're saying in terms of the English and Maths Key Stage 2 SATs. I try to tell you what grade they're going to get in GCSE Arts or GCSE DT. It doesn't really work for every subject, whereas a lot of the subjects it works very well for. So we also need that. And I think that's where sometimes the comments, etc., and a lot of the other dialogue that we're going to be talking about is very, very, very important. Okay, so specific for each subject as well. Just in case anyone isn't aware of the change that are on the horizon for GCSE grades. So anyone who's doing GCSE grades this summer comes out with A star to G. But if they're doing Maths or English next summer, they actually come out with grades 9 to 1. And nearly every other subject, if a child is currently in year 9 going into year 10, they will end up getting GCSEs across the board that are grades 9 through to 1. You can see roughly where the lines are drawn. So A star to A on the old exam system is level 7, 8 or 9. B's and C's are going to get grades 4, 5 and 6. And pretty much they're the ones that the students at our school will be aiming for. We don't often get students, or not many students will fall below a grade C in very many subjects. So they're the ones that we will be giving out next year in our forecast grades, and this grades that your sons will eventually be getting. So I think you've got that as one of the handouts has got that picture on, and the other 3 pictures that are useful on the way through as well. Okay, so I'm now going to just finish off talking about tracking. So we've got a target grade, just law of averages grade based on a graph, basically what they've got Key Stage 2, what they should end up getting, what they've got at GCSE average point score, A-level graph, what they should end up getting. What we do as teachers in the school is each term we're going to be producing for your son where we think they are heading for. So a forecast grade, not where they're at now, but obviously what we do is we look at where they're at now, we understand how old they are, how many years it is to go, and what eventually that might end up leading towards in terms of a grade. So we're doing that flight path idea you might have heard of before, a lot of people around schools and education. We're doing that flight path idea, but rather than trying to say, well, in year 7 he should be on a 4, and then he moves to a 5 in year 8, and then in 6 in year 9, etc. We're just saying, at the end he'll end up here. And that's really what we're saying, and that's what we're going to use for the whole of what was Key Stage 3 and Key Stage 4, so the whole of time, year 7 through to year 11. So we're just going to give them a forecast grade which will tell them where we think they're on track for. Now, if they're in year 10 and 11 and we're giving them a forecast grade of a grade 8 or whatever it might be, we're probably reasonably confident that they will probably get a grade 8 or perhaps a grade outside of that. If they're in year 7 or year 8 and we're trying to say that they're on track for a grade 7, I don't know, that idea of being one grade either side of it, that could easily, it's 4 years, there's a long time to go, a lot of things could go right or wrong in terms of that child's education. Just, again, take it with a pinch of salt as well, I've said it a couple of times, so just be aware of that. It's the best guess of where we think they're on and where they should have been on, and what we'll do in terms of tracking is a simple, very simple idea now, because it's just 2 numbers. So what grade they should be getting, what grade they're on track for, just take one away from the other. If it comes out as 0, they're smack on track for what they should be getting. So that is basically what we're going to be doing in terms of our tracking. Same sort of idea at A level, but we've got a different grading system, but same sort of idea. I'm going the wrong one. Okay, so the simple one subtracted from the other will give you a numerical grade. So if you look at those on the right hand side. Good if it's within 1. Now you might think if he's on 0 and just on track, that isn't making good progress. What we are doing is we're setting what we call aspirational targets. We're setting targets at the FFT 20, the 20th percentile, so the top 20% of the ability range, where they would go, or not ability range actually, sorry, I got that wrong. Top 20% of performance from that starting point. That's what the FFT is going to give you. So your grades are going to be aspirational, they're going to be at the high end already. So if they're hitting targets that are at the high end for that child, he is making good progress. So that's why I think if they're within 1 of that, we can just say good. Now, unfortunately, some of the students, it's fairly impossible for students at this school sometimes to get to the gold ones, because you might well find his targets an 8 or a 9. You can't get higher than that already. So if a child is getting a very high forecast grade, a very high target grade, and meeting it, please just accept green's brilliant. Green is good. You know, it can't be gold because you can't get an 11, I'm afraid. All right, so, you know, but obviously it's fairly easy to understand once you get into the swing of it, once you get used to the numbers, that will come through. And I think that's a lot of it. It's just, that's the purpose of tonight, a lot of it, just to get you used to the idea that the GCSE grades are changing, and therefore you're going to get numbers from now on instead of levels, instead of GCSE grades on a letter scale. So that's a good thing today. If that's all you take away from today, it's something. Obviously, if they're not making good progress, so if their forecast grade is lower than their target grade, that will give a minus figure to that sum. And if it falls below 1, so it's a whole grade or more lower than it should be, then we need to start thinking about doing something about that. So it'll just flag up in terms of our tracking that they're, you know, less than expected progress, or heaven forbid, little or no progress. But we'll obviously, what it is warning us, and that they're the students then that will be in need of intervention. And I've just said that, but if it's close to 0, everything's great. I've mentioned FFT 20, 20th percentile, so the top 20% of performance from that starting point. Exceptional or very good progress if it's positive, and negative scores would be less than expected progress. So what we're going to do is we're going to get those grades into school. And every term except for Year 7 autumn term, we will be asking our teachers to produce an attainment grade. There's a caveat there. So in Year 7, as they first come into school as Year 7s, we are not going to ask for that target grade from that forecast grade from our teachers. It's very early to be making an assessment, and remember what I said about that assessment is then a forecast grade of what they're going to get at the end of Year 11. We're going to give them a little bit of time to actually get to know that student a little bit better, and the first time that the attainment grades will be actually issued will be just before Easter in Year 7. Every other time through school you will be getting an attainment grade, there will be an attainment grade generated, and it will be compared with where they should be at, and that progress sheet will show that. In terms of what the reports might look like, there's one on the thing. You've got a version of it on your handout. So this would be for Year 7 or a Year 8 up to the final report in Year 8, because we're not actually going to tell you what the attainment grade data is. We know it, we know what the target is, and we know where your child is at, where your son is at, and we've done the maths behind it, the one thing versus another, and we're seeing whether he's making very good, less than expected, good, exceptional progress. And you are going to get that information home, and I think there are lots of sensible reasons for not finishing you with that information, but the main one is it's our best guess for at the end of GCSE. And realistically, we don't want to be tarring people and putting a lot of pressure on saying, well, he's going to be getting a grade 9 or whatever straight away. And equally, if they're doing not so well, we don't want to be saying that they're only going to be getting a 4, 5, 6 or whatever when you think they should be getting, or would like them to be getting a lot higher. We are going to take that information in. And if a child is getting a 4, 5, 6 when they should be getting a 7, 8 or a 9, we will know about it because when we do the sum behind the scenes, it will come up as red. There'll be little or no progress. There will be less than expected progress. It will be flagged up if your son is not doing very well in terms of their whole academic progress moving forwards. We're just not saying that a year 7 child is going to be getting a grade 8 or a grade 9 at that early point in their school life. All right? You will know from year 8 onwards, year 8 in the summer onwards. And the main reason I was quite keen on telling everybody at that stage is because then you'll be making your GCSE choices quite soon after that. And I think it'd be very wrong of us to hide that information from you because it might well be quite a determining factor as to which subjects you end up choosing to do, as in which ones that you're going to be getting the best grades in would certainly be a determining factor, as well as enjoyment and everything else and career progression and all the rest of it. In terms of what it would look like for a student higher up the year, you have got those numbers on this, these middle 3 columns which were omitted from that one. So you do get a target grade. The target grade is quite finely differentiated. It's not just a rough and ready, he's going to be getting a grade A or a grade 7 or 8 as it would now be. It would be a 6.74. So it's very straight across and where it would hit that vertical line. The advantage of that is if a child is getting a 7 or a 6, then he's pretty much still on track. And I would hate to be looking at grades yo-yoing backwards and forwards when they haven't even changed by a whole grade, but they've just missed the grade boundary by 1 or 2 marks or something like that. So that's there to see anyway. The colour coding is exactly the same between the two. Sorry. So you still get a very good less than expected. We're doing the sum behind the scenes, which is exactly the same. We're just not actually telling you what those numbers were. And then in terms of parental consultation, when you get this information and all the rest of it. So first of all, we're talking about at Key Stage 4 and A level, you get a parents' evening, so where you actually do get to see each of your son's subject teachers. To be honest, that would be very difficult at Key Stage 3. If you want to see the music teacher, just join that long queue of all 120 people, because there are quite a few subjects where that applies, and there are a lot more subjects that would have where a teacher would have 2 of the 4 classes, and there'd be a big long line of you would not basically get to see them. So what we do at Key Stage 3 is we do consultation days, where you get a 10-minute focused appointment with the form teacher, and one of the main reasons for us including the comments still there is to try and help that conversation with the form teacher at consultation days. So that will be there, even though it's a spring report, it's not the annual report, you will still get up to 25-word comments about how your child is progressing that term. The last thing I'd like to mention on those reports is the attitude to learning grade. So in the middle section you've got December, March, you'd obviously get one in the summer when it comes to it.